Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Some of the most meaningful jewelry you own isn't new. It's inherited. A ring from a grandmother, a necklace full of memories, but no longer your style. Duke's Jewelers reimagines family heirlooms into custom pieces you'll actually wear and love. Working one-on-one, Duke's designers honor the original story while creating something fresh and modern. Don't let meaningful jewelry sit unused. Let it live on beautifully. Visit Duke's Jewelers in Springville or online at dukesjewelers.com, where old stories become new treasures.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're brought to you in part by My Hearing Centers, and you can join Scotty G Tuesday from noon to 3 at My Hearing Centers at 8941 South, 700 East in Sandy. DJ and PK, time to welcome in Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach. Sporting Kansas City coming to town Saturday afternoon, 2:30 start, an unusual start. Pablo, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Pablo, are you a creature of habit? With all these 7:30, and 8 o'clock games, does a 2:30 game totally throw you, or is this the best thing ever? It's warmer, and, hey, you'll have a Saturday night to watch film and obsess about the game.
There you go. No, I think you just got to roll with the punches, DJ. And if it's a 2 o'clock game, we'll be ready for it. You know, we train at 11 today, so we have more than 24 hours of recovery. So it shouldn't affect it. If nothing else, it should be a beautiful day.
So you had a couple of weeks of recovery because you haven't played. What do the sports science people tell you about how to keep the guys in condition?
Yeah, so obviously, they monitor the loads, and so we brought down the loads a little bit, and we're really cognizant. And the other part too is the cognitive load, right? So the brain loads, how much they're using, and using it both as a week to where we can stay sharp and minimize the amount of time we're on the field and minimize the amount of information we're giving them so that they're fresh. And so now this week, these last couple of days, we've kind of ramped it up a little bit more in lieu of the game. But those guys are front and center and kind of dictate the physical and at times the cognitive load of the group.
And all that work you'll just repeat because now you're off next week. The game that people might see on a schedule for Seattle is not there. They've moved it to September. Apparently were you told, is that because of Seattle's field? They put grass over the turf in preparation for a World Cup, so they want to stay off it a little bit? Is that the deal?
That's what I was told as well. And again, these things are always like the change of times on game day, moving games. One of the things that you have to be is adaptable, and I think if those things really move your emotional state, then you're probably not focusing on the right things. And so for us, it's really about, we're going to have a inter-squad scrimmage here at the stadium next Friday to get the guys as close to a game as we can do that with a little bit of pressure. And so that should be good. But, yeah, there's just a ton of adapting, especially in a year where the U.S. is hosting the World Cup.
You have all these people that are experts in various fields, as you just alluded to, and with the cognitive and the physical and all that stuff, and they can get you to where you need to be in terms of what the team is as far as their mental and physical state. But there's this one thing that I don't know that you can have an expert on. And before the break, you guys had momentum. And now you want to continue the momentum. And I'm not sure there's a guy with a doctorate, a lady with a doctorate who can tell you how to keep the momentum. That's a tricky, funny thing, but we all know when teams have it and we know when they don't have it. So how are you going to get them to continue to have it? Because obviously you have had it.
Yeah, no, I think, that's a great question. And obviously I don't have the answer to that. But what I will say is the way that I always think about performance is that Saturday is not an isolated event, in that the preparation from Monday to Friday is critical in preparing the body, the mind, and the spirit to really attack Saturday in a way that you're playing from flow, right? So if you do all those things right leading up to game day, you're not overthinking and get this paralysis by analysis that will actually stop momentum. So the flow state is the state where momentum carries on from an individual perspective that hopefully transmits itself to the collective. And so what I've seen this week, again, is a very similar progression, a very similar mindset and execution of a group of guys that I've seen in the previous 3 or 4 games. And so from that perspective, I think we do have momentum. And now it's about executing that momentum on game day against a really good attacking group in SKC.
You almost went Eminem there. Lose yourself in the moment, right? State of flow. That's exactly it. Look at you go. Unreal, Pablo. Just unreal. I had a coach, and it was a basketball coach, who said if you're going to – he didn't use the word flow, but he was getting at what you were getting at. He said you have to lose yourself in the game. That's what he said. All the ego goes away. Lose yourself in the game. And it was high school coaches, JV basketball, and he said it starts at the defensive end. If you're focused on everything you have to do and you're giving maximum effort, then when you get the ball, you're in the game, as opposed to like, I finally got the ball. Now I need to make a shot. You know, that's just gonna be a turnover. That's gonna be a disaster. And so, do you talk to your guys about that? Even attack-minded offensive guys, Diego Luna, Victor Olatunji, whoever, Xavier Gozo, any of these attack-minded guys. Lose yourself in the game defensively, that's where it all starts?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I talked to all those guys. And I think what we've seen this year is guys like Morgan and Serge winning the ball lower and even goes. And then 4 or 5 passes later, it's in the back of the net. So our attacking transition has been really good. So it's been a lot easier to kind of harp on that. Everyone commits to defending when we don't have the ball, right? We have 11 defenders. And then when we win the ball, it's like you're saying, it's like now guys are interpreting space and time against their opponents from a place of flow. There's not an organized defense to kind of break down. Everyone's their back line scrambling. We're running forward. Guys are passing and looking, and it's a really beautiful thing. And so I think with the bit of success that we've had in our attacking transition, it's made it a lot easier to convince these guys that everyone is a defender when we don't have the ball.
When things are going well, as they have been, how much do you focus on the team internally as opposed to the opponent?
Again, I think that's a great question. So this week, the last 2 days we've focused on SKC, but the previous 4 or the previous 3 we focused on ourselves. And I think for us, with the group that we have and the bit of momentum that we have, the onus is on us to be a better version of ourselves than we were against San Diego away from home, right? And I think that's our challenge because San Diego's a really good team. SKC is a really good team. And so for us, it's always about sharpening our knives, understanding the way we want to play and doing it better week to week. This week we talked a little bit about the build phase where we struggled a little bit against San Diego. So we spent some time in trying to fine-tune some actions and clarify some decision-making for the guys to make it easier for them and why we're doing it. Why are these actions preferable against this type of shape and just kind of get into that. And so I think it's really important for us to continue to be a better version of ourselves whilst taking into consideration that we have an opponent that might play a different shape and here are the little tweaks that we can make. But overall, what we don't want to do is make our opponents the focal point. Because I think in a long season like this and we want to be a top team, we've got to continue to improve, whether we're winning games or tying games or in a good way. The onus is on us to continue to improve.
We keep seeing these themes come up over and over again. Different sports, different leagues, Pablo. You probably don't have time to follow the Utah Mammoth hockey team, but they have a really good young player, Logan Cooley, very exciting, goal scorer, fans love him. And he's going down the ice, and he gets hit, and he hits his knee and kind of wraps around the goal, and it looked brutal. He was out a long period of time. And the team played well while he was out, and then he had to come back and bring what he brings because he's really good, but he's also got to fit in the group, and they got to keep rolling. And we've been talking about the Jazz, how they have to integrate these new guys, and veterans may have to make space for these new guys who are going to demand the ball more because these young guys are really good. You have young guys who are really good who've moved veterans aside. You've played multiple teenagers this year who scored goals. Xavier Gozo's probably at the top of the list, but Aiden Hazarkani also, and there are other guys who played. And you also have to integrate guys back in who've been injured like Cooley. How are you juggling this? You only get to start 11 guys this week. You've already started 17. They've produced and you're rolling. and you haven't started Luna and Olatunji, who were automatic starters a year ago. They'd be starters 18 and 19. What are you going to do, Pablo? How do you handle this?
Yeah, so I think it's been really interesting, and I think that's been the most interesting aspect of this year from a coaching perspective is that you don't anticipate the young guys to do so well, right? You expect them to hold their own, but really these guys are making a difference, right? Gozo's making a big difference. You got Aiden Herzakani who scored a couple goals. You got Sergi Solans who scored a couple goals. So you got guys that are producing that we weren't counting on before the season started. In other words, we didn't say that these guys are going to score goals. We just thought these guys are going to get minutes, and let's see what they do with it. But they've taken it and they've run. And so what I found myself, in particular yesterday, is having probably 5 or 6 conversations with players, and younger and older, and really just being really transparent about and putting the team first, right? And doing that. And I say this all the time, it's more art than it is science, and it's really empathizing with the individual that's sitting in front of you and what he might be going through. And, I've had the luxury of being pretty much every player in this locker room, which is, the youngest player to the captain and guys that are going to the World Cup. And so I feel like with every player I can kind of connect and kind of empathize with them as we start the conversation. But it's been really difficult. But the great thing is when the team's in a good way, they understand that the team's the most important thing. Having these conversations with the team not doing well, that's a whole different game, but everyone received the what you'd perceive as not so good news and good news in a really positive way. And I think that the onus is on me to be completely transparent and make sure that I'm always doing things to put the team first.
Meet Christine. She loves shopping. And this is the sound of fashion overload. Too many fabulous things, not enough space. So Christine started selling with The RealReal.
I've always loved collecting designer pieces. Gucci bags, Prada heels. But my style keeps evolving. Selling with The RealReal? Game changer. I earn more, and they do everything.
Seriously, just drop off your items or schedule a pickup. We handle the photos, descriptions, pricing, even shipping. You just sit back and watch your items sell fast to our 38 million members.
And I get peace of mind knowing I earn more selling with The RealReal than anywhere else.
Exactly. That's the sound of your closet working for you. The RealReal. Earn more, save time, sell fast. And right now, you can get an extra $100 site credit when you sell for the first time. Go to therealreal.com to get your extra $100. Therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Wouldn't the success of literal teenagers energize the team?
Yes, they do. They do. I mean, their youthful presence alone is energizing to the team, and it's energizing to the staff. And from an attacking perspective, these young players aren't jaded, right? So they don't know what difficulties are in a professional career yet. So they're trying things that most guys don't try. And I know, DJ, you were at a training session and you saw Aiden turn someone on the end line. Most players don't even attempt that because the risk reward isn't great enough, and you probably turn the ball over and your team has to defend. But Aiden didn't think twice about it and skinned some guy on the line and created a goal scoring opportunity. And that's what the youth do, is they bring a bunch of belief and they bring a lot of positivity, like you're saying, PK. And it's been a fantastic blend of having experienced players, like Hoffa and Jake Ladd and Morgan, and then having the youth, Luka, Moisa, Sergi, Aiden Herzakani, Gozo. These guys are just, playing off the cuff. And I think that's what's making us a really good team and also an exciting team where we have a good blend of both.
I'm wondering how much you compliment the guys who have this team-first attitude when it's difficult, and how much you compliment them in front of the group, which I would think would be an even more powerful compliment than complimenting them one-on-one. And the guy I'm thinking about in particular is Philip Quinton, because you acquired him, you played him some, and he played in multiple positions, very helpful, but you brought in some new guys to that position. And when you brought him in, and especially given their age and experience, I was like, well, I think Yedlin is the starter at the place that Phillip would play, but I'm not even sure he's the backup. I asked somebody about him, is he the third-string guy? And they're like, I think he's the fourth-string guy. Sure enough, you have 3 injuries. He has to play, and now he's got a couple assists. And I wouldn't say that you're winning because of him, but you are winning with him.
Correct.
And he could certainly sink the ship if he was messing up, but he's where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there, and you're getting wins. So how do you handle that conversation with him, both in the group and individually?
Well, to be fair, I think when things are going well, I try to stay away, DJ. I don't try to get involved and I just let it play out. He's obviously in a good headspace because he's performing week in and week out in a really, really good way. He's training really well. He's playing really well at the weekends. And so I think the last thing you want to do is overinflate an ego or make him doubt by saying something, because oftentimes as coaches, we don't understand that. What we might perceive as like a positive, hey, good job, or, whatever it is, it might be taken a little bit differently, or, and so I think when he's in a good way, just let him go. I think if he's stumbling a little bit, that's where it's always positive and saying, hey, let's go. You got this, bud. You've been doing great. But Phillip has really been really bright, and a little bit like it was in 2024 when he joined the group and had a run of play, and a lot of it came from injury as well. And now he stakes a claim in the position, and now it's going to be, competition. And I think that's what makes us a unique team as well this year, different from last year, where we have players now performing at really high levels, regardless of what position they're playing. And I think that's what we need to be a top caliber team.
Coaches, as you say, the head coach has to deliver maybe unpleasant, bad, negative news, whatever it might be, because he has to tell them the truth, and they need to hear it from the head coach. Assistant coaches, I've heard, to me, over the years in the various sports, that they're almost like counselors in terms of they have a different role and they can communicate differently with the player, whereas the head coach has to be straight. Do you have that in your staff?
Yes. No, that's a great point, PK. We have a great staff, and I think certain players tend to lean on certain coaches, right? The guys that they have connections to. And it happened this week a couple times where, players were kind of nervous about, maybe their position within the team. And Jamal says, Jamal had reached out to me and said, hey, there's a couple guys that are nervous about it. And so obviously I pulled the guys aside and I just kind of, acquiesced or not acquiesced, but allayed their fears, and just had a little conversation. And so I think, the one thing that they can do is kind of reinforce, the message, but reinforce it in a way that is it's a lot more palatable, a lot more empathetic, which I feel I am empathetic when I'm talking about it, but it's also good to hear it from somebody else because they want to make sure that what I said was aligned with the rest of the coaching staff to make sure that, we're all speaking from the same hymn sheet. So it's a really important role. And even they'll all the coaches will, if they notice or they had a conversation with the player and said, hey, listen, Pablo, I think this guy can really use a pat on the back from you, man. He's a little bit down. He can really use it. And so then I'll, pull the guy in. And so, as a staff, we have to work a lot like the players on the field. We have to work together. We have to work selflessly. And the aim is always to try to maximize the output of the individual and put them in the best headspace to contribute to the group.
As the head coach, you're responsible for so many people. I mean, not only a couple dozen players, well, more than that, as many as 30 players, but then you've got all these assistant coaches, and everybody's got different issues. You have a couple players who might end up playing in the World Cup. They also might not be invited to be part of the team. Obviously, you can say whatever you want. They wouldn't be human if they weren't thinking about that. I know I'd be thinking about it if I were them.
Yeah.
How do you address it with someone like Diego Luna, obviously with the U.S., but you got Sanabria also who might be able to make his team and go to the World Cup. How do you address that, especially when guys are like, I just want to be called in and given the chance, and they probably feel like they really have to produce in the next 3, 4, 5 games, but sometimes that can mess with you also. How do you address that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And that's obviously, I think that tendency is more, I think, common in attacking players where they have to make plays. versus Sanabria, which is, with Uruguay, he plays more of a left back that gets forward as well. But I think his industry and his positioning are more important than the final product. So, so again, with Diego, it's really, we need him to make plays. We want him to be, front and center when we're in the final third. But we also want great reactions, and we want a great teammate, and we want a guy that defends when we don't have the ball as well. So it's not like we're sacrificing one for the other. It's show your stuff, be brave, express yourself, because that's what makes Diego Luna the player that he is. But also when we don't have the ball, we're going to need you to help defend on this, and with a group in order for us to continue with this momentum and continue to win games. And so that would be the only thing I'd ask, and that's what I've always asked of Diego Luna. And I think when he does that, he becomes a player that got him on the national team and made him a mainstay in all of 2025, and hopefully we'll take him to the 2026 World Cup.
I told DJ
crazy.
earlier, I told him, I said that I'm going to tell this to Pablo. There's a classmate of mine that I played baseball with at Thunderbird who lives in the Salt Lake area. So I wanted you to know that there's 3 jocks from Thunderbird who are roaming the streets of Salt Lake City, Utah.
That's awesome. That's so funny.
Thunderbird's taking over the world.
Let's go, Chiefs.
All right. All right, Pablo, 2:30, Kansas City, a rare Saturday afternoon game at Rio Tinto. But, man, April and the way the weather's been this week, this is the time for an afternoon game. Whoever did that right really got it. They either got really lucky or they were really smart, or maybe they were both. We'll look forward to that, and we will talk to you again next week. Good luck, Pablo.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
There's Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach. PK, it's funny, the more we do this and the longer we do it, there is always sports-specific stuff, but there's so much stuff from the way assistant coaches interact with these players to the way you integrate young guys in when they're taking away playing time from veteran players who haven't done anything wrong. Do you lose a job to injury? High school, college, pro, football, baseball, basketball, soccer, lacrosse, whatever sport you're playing. These are all issues. Coaches just keep facing them over and over. How do they handle them? It's one of the intriguing things.
Absolutely. They are universal and they apply. And that's why talking to Pablo is so fascinating virtually every week, because he goes in depth on these type of things, and they are at the front of mind in terms of, skill, but also the other stuff that goes on. And a lot of coaches are hesitant to talk about that, but Pablo is far more revealing in what he's doing to make sure that you've got the players, the team all set up, not just for the talent's sake, but all the other things that go into what it takes. I mean, I don't want to give up stuff, but there's a general manager from the Jazz who would talk about that stuff, but he wasn't really comfortable talking about it on the record. But he would tell you stuff about all this, the way they're juggling the wives and the girlfriends and all these other things that they've got that the front office folks are well aware of to make sure that the player is playing at the peak capacity.
And one thing that's really changed that NBA people had to get used to, again, not to give up all the stories, parents. How involved were parents with some of the younger players? And I bet you know some specific stories. I bet you were told there have been some younger players who've come through with parents who were super involved. And it was like, okay, how do we create a little space? And in one case, the player's like, can you help me create a little space? Like, I'm 20 now.
Yeah, especially if the Jazz if they get a top 3 pick, that's going to be the case, because the top 3 players, and probably even more, these guys have known that they're going to most likely be in the NBA for several years. So they've been quote unquote special basically since they're 15 years old.
Yes, if not earlier. You're right. 100%. Yeah. Right. Well, DeBonta was at 15. I think he was playing on an international team. He was certainly the Mr. Basketball in Massachusetts. So I'm figuring he knew he was special at 13 or 14. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he could have come out and blown the whole state away at 15 and just dominated people. All right, DJ and PK, when we come back, everything you missed in this show. David Locke had some intriguing stuff to say. We will get to that about the Jazz with only 5 games left in their season. Only 7 games left in the Mammoth season, and they are setting themselves up quite nicely. That was an impressive performance by them, even though the first 10 or 15 minutes didn't go well. Man, they turned that thing around. We'll get to that next. Stay with us right here on The Zone.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope, she bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.